Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of May 30th, 2011. And welcome to the site. Thank you for being here and supporting the site. The Ask Videomail is your chance as a member to get your question on character animation or performance asked in, or answered in a video mail such as this one. So if you haven't asked a question, please do. I don't know what you're waiting for. It's a great way to interact and a great way to get the most value out of the site. For instance, Animation Mentor charges, I believe it's like $75 or something like that for a mentor critique after you graduate. So you're paying a low subscription every single month, and you could get basically the same kind of attention on your question right here. So it's a great value, and I think you should take advantage of it if you haven't already. And just wanted to let you know that since moving an office is a hugely difficult thing and it is really tough to get through, I decided that I'm going to record 2 video mails. So I'm going to record 2 today just so that I'm absolutely sure that there's going to be no lapse in the video mails in the move. So it's going to look like I'm here, but I'm going to be at the new office starting in June. So, any rate, that's all I wanted to say. Let's get right to the question because it's a good one. So I wanted to take a second and kind of just re-evaluate workflow, redefine it, and kind of explain why we're so hell-bent on workflow on this site. The first thing I learned basically by teaching myself, and it was a very long process. It took years and years and years and years. And when I see, for instance, at Animation Mentor, how fast students learn animation, and people going from a dead halt to basically professional in 18 months, it really excites me. Also kind of pisses me off because I work so hard, and teaching yourself is basically the slowest way to do it. What I discovered, though, was that the main difference between when you're working on your own and when you have guidance and direction is that you are basically given a way to do things. And when you start your animation, you start with a very rudimentary workflow that is basically the result of you piecing together or adding just a small part of animation at a time. So for instance, the first thing you learn is bouncing ball. So you learn timing and spacing. There's no posing involved. It's just a ball, right? And then you learn squash and stretch. So you start adding fundamentals, and then anticipation, and then follow through and overlap. And so you start piecing all together these fundamentals, and basically your workflow up to that point is almost a direct result of the order you learn those fundamentals. What I found after starting teaching at Animation Mentor was the students who immediately rejected a workflow that was simply born of the order that they learned the fundamentals, for instance, the better they did. And so that got me thinking, and what I realized was that most people learning animation go about it by looking at what is in front of them and trying to imagine the first thing that they should work on that will improve it the most. And that as well is not the correct order to do things. Okay, so overlap on a tail makes a tail look really good. But if you have a bouncing ball with a tail attached, okay, and you have the ball basically blocked in, but not really moving exactly and timed exactly, it's going to be, then it'd be silly to just do overlap on the tail, right? Because even though overlap on the tail will look really good and make the whole thing start feeling really flowy and organic and animation-y, if you just did overlap on the tail and then you make adjustments and changes to the ball, where it bounces, how high it bounces, the speed at which it bounces, timing and its spacing, all those things, then all of that tail overlap is going to break. It's not going to look good, and you're going to have to redo it. So that's basically one workflow error that is very common, and basically is mostly affecting your speed, not really your quality, because you're still getting good practice at overlap no matter how many times you have to redo overlap on a shot that you polished too early. But polishing too early is a very common workflow problem. So I go into this in the workflow lecture that's in the archive in the store, which you should check out if you haven't already. But every single thing that I do, that when I'm animating, you hopefully see that I'm going through a very ordered process. And so the question asks, how do you know when you are supposed to break from workflow and noodle here and there? Well, the answer is this. Noodling is part of your workflow. So again, just like I answered the question that was an email in March, the March article was, is there ever a time to sacrifice workflow? The answer is the same, no. So for instance, I brought up this shot. If you've seen the lecture from this month, it is the Evolve conference, and I did a cartoony shot, basically a cartoony zip out with a lot of extras. Okay. And one thing that I was noticing, let's watch it again. One thing that I was noticing was at the very end that the chest. Let me open up the. Let me open up an earlier version. I'll talk while I'm navigating to my rig here. One thing that I noticed was that the chest, when the guy is basically winding up and about to zip out, was moving all over the place. And I needed to go frame by frame. And what I did was I created an editable motion trail that is in panel, so I can actually see the arc in panel and smooth it out and tweak it frame by frame. So when it loads, you'll see that. Now, again, that was part of my workflow. And while you're watching the lecture, you'll see that I got everything where I needed it to be. And in Blocking Plus, all of the breakdowns were there. That's how you know when you're in Blocking Plus, is that you're not adding, or when you're done Blocking Plus and it's time to polish, you're not adding any more breakdowns, like true, solid, full-body breakdowns. Sure, there might be a gesture that is a little bit flat, and you might want to take it out a little bit, but you're not doing any more full-body gestures. Those are all built in already. So to answer the question a little bit more, it might seem like, especially in the flour sack example that I animated over 3 months, I believe it was the February, March, April lecture was the flour sack. It might seem at certain points like I stopped and tweaked and basically broke workflow. But that moment to tweak was definitely a part of the current phase that I was at. And I tell my students at Animation Mentor this all the time, which is, if you're sitting down, let's say I haven't animated for a day on my shot, and I'm sitting down and I'm opening up my shot, and if you look at it and you play it a couple times, and then immediately you just go, oh, well, I want to do this, then you're going to have a problem. Because what's going to happen is, number one, you're not only going to lose your good eyes looking at the shot over and over and over without taking down notes. Okay, that's one part of workflow for sure that you should definitely do if you're not doing right now. Take all your notes in the beginning. So not only are you going to lose your good eye, but you're going to be biased towards changing something that is not the right time. You're not at that phase in the process, all right? To simplify this all down, the number one thing that you need to be aware that your mind is going to do is try to improve the shot as fast as possible. And again, improving the shot as fast as possible is probably not going to improve the shot as good as possible. Or give you a way to be sure that in the end you're going to take the least amount of time on the shot that you need to. Right? So if you are working as fast as possible, in the end you're going to take more time. It's just like with step keys. With step keys, we know that, and we're looking out for it because I've mentioned it over and over. With step keys, it goes and then it pops to a new pose. Our mind blends those poses together. And even if you have like a really stepped, weird like arc in the air, your mind, because our brains, they have to do this or they freak out. We'll make it look like in our mind, it'll fix the timing and the spacing so that it's a nice parabolic arc, like jumping up and like a bouncing ball, gravity. Okay? So it's just like that, what your mind does as you're working. Okay? So you have to constantly combat that and resist your mind telling you that this right now needs to be fixed. You need to add this. You need to do, your overlap, or you need to, whatever it is. And right now, journal your workflow, write it down, see what order you're doing things, and even write down just the smallest note. Take 5 minutes every hour you work and just write down what you did. I blocked the feet on fours. I'm using step keys, and the hips are splined. I don't know why. It's just easier for me to look at it like this. That's fine. Whatever you write down, and then move on. And then when you look back at all this work that you've done and flip through your workflow as it stands right now, you might say to yourself, you know what, I didn't know then, but having the hips or the cog, or whatever you want to call it, the root control in spline from the very beginning, that probably was the single most important thing that made that walk cycle work quickly and be manageable all the way through. So on walk cycle, maybe not acting shots, maybe not performance, big pose-to-pose gestures and whatever, but maybe on walk cycles, you just discovered that you always start on splines with the root controller or something, all right? And journal your workflow, and then make workflow adjustments and observe the resulting improvement to your shot, rather than sitting down time after time at your shot and saying, oh, I want to fix this, and I want to fix this, and oh, that doesn't look good, and just starting to work. Okay? It might seem like you're removing yourself from the work a little bit, but you're not. You're actually creating a record of how your effort translates into results in animation. Without that record, throw that away. How do you know what is best and what is going to give you the best results? Okay, so let me open up that scene. The Maya crashed, so let me open it back up again. Forgive me, taking long here. You have all these scene files as well. I hope you guys download the scenes and check them out, because it's pretty clear what's going on between versions when you have every single version ready for you to peruse and to break apart and check out and whatever. So that's why I provide them, because it's a great way to learn. Also, you can get that workflow PDF. I'll attach it to this Videomail as well, but you can get that workflow PDF on the site as well. All right, so here's the Blocking Plus version, and so let me just show you. So see how the chest is moving all up and down in this section, like 85 to 100. All right. So all I did, let me show curves. Just grab this guy. Now let me create an editable motion trail. And you'll see that, there it is. You'll see that all of this wiggly giggly that's going on in here, and what's nice about the new editable motion trails, is that as you can see, they have the frame count on them, frame number, and whatever. So it's super easy to just go in and adjust and make this a nice smooth arc. So anyway, let me go to the correct frame here. I'm just going to basically add a breakdown. It's not even really a breakdown, it's just a small little adjustment. I'm just smoothing arcs here. And if you notice, and I hope you do notice, because it's plainly it's written in black and white in the workflow sheet that I have for you guys to download. But one of the steps is to retrack the arcs and make sure the arcs are right on the money. Okay, so where I am right now, this might seem like it's noodling and this is really dangerous and whatever, but no, I know, because of the phase that I am in my workflow right now, this is the end of Blocking Plus, that it's time to go into polish, and that I'm not adding so many keys that I'm going to have to, I'm screwing anything up, because the shot is at the phase that I'm currently working at. All right. So now as you watch this, go back to the camera. Okay. Now as you watch this, then let me just show only polygons. You'll see that in the frames that I was talking about, now see that? It's a nice smooth arc in this chest area here. See? It's just so nice and whatever. So there is a moment, I mean, that might be a little bit like jarring, because I'm going frame by frame and the rest of the shot is, it needs that kind of love as well. Well, you got to start somewhere. So yeah, it'll look like I'm noodling on a certain, just one part of the shot and putting myself in danger. But that's where I was at that moment, okay? So to wrap it all back up, if you're not interested in workflow, you're really wasting a lot of your time. I don't know how else to recommend it higher. I really don't. Like one last comparison. It took me about 5 years from when I first opened up a 3D program, which was 3D Studio DOS, and when I first animated my first character for a job. Okay, and I was basically working every day. Okay, so it took me 5 years every day to get to that point. And at Animation Mentor, you can get there in 18 months. And at Animation Mentor, that is just how much workflow is basically forced on you. If I promise you, every single person who is aware of this and not just like letting workflow happen to them, but is like a workflow maniac like me, they go through the program, and I mean, it takes the same amount of time to graduate, of course, but those are the people who are picked up by DreamWorks, ILM, Pixar right out of the school, are the ones who know that they have an order, a process of attacking a shot that they go through every single time and improve and work on and are aware of. Okay? So, long story short, to answer the question, I'm never departing from my workflow. Every single thing I need to do at a certain moment is part of my process. And I just encourage you guys to start recording your process and improving on it and dedicating yourself to workflow. Okay? Thank you for the question. Please send in more questions. I need to have all these questions. I need to have questions to answer them. So if you haven't sent a question in yet, now's a great time to do it. Send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones I think that will help the most people. All right, that'll do it. Thanks again. Good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.